The lecture hall fell silent as Professor Zinthar held up the translucent display case. Inside floated a small, crimson sphere covered in peculiar dimpled skin. His 4 eyes swept across the assembled cadets, each one representing a different species from across the Galactic Coalition. "This," he announced, his chitinous plates clicking with emphasis, "is one of the most insidious weapons ever catalogued from Death World Earth. The humans call it a strawberry." A Vexillian cadet in the third row shuddered, her chromatophores flashing pale yellow. Zinthar continued, manipulating the holographic data that spiraled around the fruit. "Within this deceptively beautiful structure lies a compound called fragorine. For 73% of known species, contact causes immediate cellular degradation. The Matherian delegation lost 2 ambassadors before we understood the threat." Lieutenant Cale Morrison sat motionless in the back row, his human features carefully neutral. He'd been the only Terran in the xenobiology track, enduring 6 months of lectures about his homeworld's apocalyptic ecosystem. Every class was the same. Earth's animals were too fast, too aggressive, too venomous. Earth's plants were chemical warfare wrapped in chlorophyll. Even Earth's weather patterns were analyzed like military tactics. Professor Zinthar tapped the display, enlarging a molecular diagram. "The pollen alone can trigger anaphylactic shock in Zentarii physiology. We believe humans cultivated these weapons specifically to—" The classroom door hissed open. Every head turned. The sudden silence carried weight, the kind that pressed against eardrums and made breathing difficult. Queen Vesthra of the Zentarii Empire stood in the doorway. Her scales were pure obsidian, her eyes vertical slits of molten gold. 2 members of the Royal Guard flanked her, their weapons powered down, but visible. Behind them, 3 attendants carried documentation tablets and scanning equipment. Professor Zinthar dropped into a full prostration, his thorax touching the floor. The students followed instantly, all except Cale, who snapped to military attention, his hand at his brow in a crisp salute. The human gesture looked alien among the bowing forms. "Rise," Queen Vesthra said. Her voice was precise, each consonant articulated with the care of someone speaking a learned language. "Continue your instruction. We are here to observe." Zinthar struggled upright, his vocalization sac fluttering with stress. "Your Majesty, this is merely a basic xenobiology survey, hardly worthy of the strawberry." Her golden eyes fixed on the display case. "You were discussing the Earth fruit. Proceed." Cale felt his pulse quicken. The Zentarii queen had lost her daughter to what the official reports called toxic exposure during diplomatic reconnaissance. The unofficial rumors spoke of a human colony, a gift basket, and a child who didn't know that what her species considered treats could kill. Zinthar's voice trembled as he continued. "The fragorine compound mimics certain Zentarii neuropeptides. The body accepts it as beneficial until cellular damage becomes catastrophic. There is no antidote. Death occurs within." He stopped, mandibles freezing mid-click. "Continue," the Queen said softly. "Within 47 minutes of exposure, Your Majesty." The silence stretched. Cale could hear his own heartbeat, could feel the uncomfortable prickle of his uniform against suddenly damp skin. Queen Vesthra moved forward, her scaled feet making no sound on the composite floor. Students pressed themselves against their desks, creating a path. She stopped in front of the display case. "In my daughter's final transmission," she said, "she described the taste as resembling moonflower nectar. Sweet. Bright. She said the human children were eating them by the handful." Her claw extended, touching the transparent surface. "She wanted to understand them. To build bridges between our species." Cale's throat tightened. He'd read the incident report. Colony designation HD 40307G. A human settlement celebrating some local harvest festival. Princess Shareth had been 23 cycles old, young for a royal, enthusiastic about her first independent diplomatic mission. Queen Vesthra turned, her gaze sweeping the classroom until it locked onto Kale. "Stand, Lieutenant Morrison." He was already standing, but he straightened further, chin up, eyes forward. Military bearing was all he had in this moment. "You are Terran." "Yes, Your Majesty." "From which colony?" "Mars, Your Majesty." "Third generation." Her head tilted slightly. "But you have visited Earth." "Yes, Your Majesty." "Basic training at the Terran Coalition Academy in Geneva." She moved toward him. The crowd of students parted like water. One of her guards shifted weight, hand moving incrementally toward a weapon. The Queen's tail flicked once, a gesture Kale had learned meant, "Stand down." "Tell me, Lieutenant Morrison," she said, stopping 3 paces away, "have you consumed a strawberry?" The classroom seemed to hold its breath. Kale understood the stakes of this question, the weight it carried. A wrong answer could spark an incident, could end his career, could. "Yes, Your Majesty." Professor Zinthear made a strangled sound. "When?" "Yesterday, Your Majesty." "In the commissary. They were serving them with the midday meal." Queen Vesthra's eyes narrowed. "You lie." "No, Your Majesty." Kale kept his voice steady, respectful but firm. "Strawberries are common in human diet. They're cultivated on most Terran colonies. We ate them frequently during my childhood. The Fragorine compound is harmless to human biochemistry, Your Majesty. What's poison to most species is nutrition to us." The Queen's tail moved in a slow S-curve, a gesture Kale didn't recognize from his xenocultural training. "Professor Zinthear," she said, not turning away from Kale, "your lecture suggested these fruits were weapons. I meant, Your Majesty, that they function as such when offered to non-humans by humans who do not understand the danger." "Yes, Your Majesty." "Or when accepted by non-humans who do not understand their own vulnerability." The professor's mandibles clicked rapidly, an expression of deep confusion. "Your Majesty, I don't. You teach these cadets that Earth is a world of weapons. That humans are surrounded by death and have grown immune to it. You catalog their fruits like armaments, their fauna like an arsenal." She finally looked away from Kale, turning to face Zinthear. "But you never taught them the most dangerous thing about humans, did you?" No one answered. Queen Vesthra reached into her robes and withdrew something small. Red. Familiar. A strawberry. Fresh, with tiny seeds visible on its surface, green leaves still attached. She held it up between her claws, and Kale's stomach dropped as he realized what was about to happen. "Your Majesty, please." Zinthear lurched forward. The guards moved instantly, weapons rising to ready positions. The professor froze. "The human children were eating them," Queen Vesthra said quietly. "My daughter wanted to share their joy, to participate in their celebration. She saw them laughing, playing, consuming these fruits without fear." The strawberry rotated slowly between her claws. "She didn't understand that what sustains them would destroy her." Neither did they. Kale's military training warred with instinct. Protocol demanded silence. Humanity demanded he speak. "Your Majesty, if you consume that fruit, you will die." "Yes, Lieutenant. I am aware." "Then why? Because I have spent 6 months trying to hate your species, and I find I cannot." She looked at the strawberry, her expression unreadable. "My intelligence officers brought me reports. Testimony from the human colonists. The children's parents. They didn't know. They offered my daughter what they considered precious, a treat, a welcome. They wept when she died. The entire colony entered mourning." She turned to Kale. "You say you consumed one yesterday?" "Yes, Your Majesty." Show me. The request made no sense. Kale glanced at Professor Zinthar, who looked equally baffled. Your Majesty, I don't have access to Lieutenant Kale Morrison. Her voice carried absolute authority. I am Queen Vesthra of the Zentarii Empire. I am ordering you to produce and consume a strawberry. Now. His hand moved to his pocket before his brain caught up. The small container was there. He grabbed extra from the commissary, planning to eat them during his afternoon study session. Standard transparent ration packaging, 3 strawberries visible inside. He pulled it out. The classroom erupted in whispers, quickly silenced by a sharp look from one of the guards. Kale opened the container, the seal breaking with a soft click. The scent of strawberries, sweet, slightly green, utterly ordinary to him, filled the immediate space. Queen Vesthra leaned forward, her nostrils flaring. That smell killed my daughter. I know, Your Majesty. Kale's hand remained steady as he lifted one strawberry free. And I'm sorry. Sorrier than I can express. He raised the fruit to his mouth and bit down. The taste exploded across his tongue, familiar, nostalgic, exactly like the strawberries from the hydroponics gardens on Mars where he'd grown up. Juice ran down his chin slightly. He chewed, swallowed, and took another bite. Queen Vesthra watched with the intensity of a predator. Kale finished the strawberry, consuming even the leaves as he'd been taught as a child. Waste nothing. He stood at attention, the empty stem between his fingers, and waited. 60 seconds passed. Then 90. The Queen's internal chronometer was clearly running, counting down the minutes her daughter had suffered. At 2 minutes, Kale's pulse was normal, his breathing steady, his skin showing no signs of distress. At 5 minutes, Queen Vesthra spoke. You feel no discomfort? No, Your Majesty. Should I consume another to demonstrate? No. She held up the strawberry she'd been holding. I want you to understand what I am about to do, Lieutenant Morrison. My council believes I should declare war against the Terran Coalition. They cite my daughter's death as justification. They claim humans are too dangerous, too alien, too fundamentally incompatible with civilized species to be trusted. Kale's blood turned cold. Your Majesty, they are wrong. She turned to face the classroom, holding the strawberry high. My daughter died because of ignorance, not malice. Because 2 species did not understand each other's biology well enough to recognize danger. The humans who gave her this fruit have sent me 3,000 messages. Apologies. Explanations. Offerings of restitution. They established a memorial garden. They named their school after her. The strawberry gleamed under the lecture hall lights. They grieve as I grieve. They teach their children about the tragedy, so it never happens again. They are not monsters who weaponize their ecosystem. They are people who live in partnership with things that would destroy us. She looked at Kale. That is what makes them dangerous. Not their weapons. Not their world. But their ability to thrive in conditions that would annihilate most of the galaxy, and to forget that others cannot do the same. She lowered the strawberry. I will not eat this fruit, Lieutenant Morrison. I will not give my council the war they want by making myself a martyr. But I needed to hold it, to smell it, to understand what my daughter experienced in her final moments. She was trying to connect with us, Kale said quietly. That's worth something, Your Majesty. It's worth everything. Queen Vesthra placed the strawberry carefully on Professor Zinthar's desk. From this day forward, the xenobiology curriculum will change. You will not teach that Earth is an arsenal. You will teach that it is a home. That every world is deadly to those who do not understand it, and that wisdom lies not in fear, but in knowledge. She moved toward the door, her guards falling into position. At the threshold, she paused. Lieutenant Morrison, You will report to my flagship tomorrow at dawn. You will serve as cultural liaison, teaching my people what you have learned about your world and learning what you can about ours. We will build the bridge my daughter died trying to create. Yes, Your Majesty. Kale saluted again, his throat tight. Queen Vestral left, her entourage following in perfect formation. The door hissed shut behind them. In the silence that followed, Kale looked down at the remaining 2 strawberries in his container. They seemed different now, heavier somehow, weighted with significance they'd never carried before. Professor Zenthiar approached slowly, his eyes fixed on the single strawberry the Queen had left behind. In 40 years of teaching, he said quietly, I have never been so completely wrong about anything. Kale sealed his container. Permission to speak freely, sir? Granted. Maybe it's time we stopped teaching fear and started teaching friendship. He met the professor's alien gaze. The galaxy is big enough for both deadly things and beautiful things to exist in the same space. Sometimes they're even the same thing. Zenthiar picked up the strawberry with careful pincers, holding it up to the light. The red surface gleamed like a jewel, like a warning, like a promise. Perhaps, he said, that's the most human lesson of all. The class sat in stunned silence as Kale gathered his materials and walked out, his footsteps echoing in the vast space. Tomorrow he would board an alien flagship and begin the work of translation, of explanation, of bridge building across a gap measured in biochemistry and tragedy. But today, he'd done something simpler and somehow more profound. He'd eaten a strawberry in front of a grieving queen and shown her that what killed her daughter gave him life. Not as a boast, not as a threat, but as a truth that needed witnessing. The galaxy was full of incompatible biologies, mutually exclusive survival requirements, species that could never share the same food or breathe the same air. But maybe, just maybe, they could still share the same future. If they were willing to learn. If they were willing to understand. If they were willing to remember that every death from ignorance was a tragedy, not an act of war. Kale paused outside the lecture hall, looking up at the alien sky of this training world. Somewhere out there, Queen Vestral was returning to her flagship, carrying the weight of choice between vengeance and wisdom. He hoped she chose well. He hoped they all would. Because the alternative was a galaxy at war over a strawberry, and nothing could be more human, or more alien, or more utterly wasteful than that. The strawberry sat on the professor's desk through the rest of the day, untouched, slowly oxidizing in the recycled air. By evening it had darkened, its surface collapsing into itself. By morning it would be gone, disposed of by cleaning drones who wouldn't understand its significance. But for those few hours it remained. A memorial. A lesson. A tiny red reminder that the deadliest thing in the universe isn't what you can weaponize, but what you fail to understand. And, understanding, Kale thought as he headed to his quarters to prepare for tomorrow's assignment, was always worth the risk. Always .5/5.